My name is Dylan Jones-Evans, as well as being Professor of Entrepreneurship. I'm the founder of the Startup Awards National Series, which we launched this week. We're hoping to build on the 2,500 entries we had last year, looking to identify the best businesses across the UK. We're going to be visiting 10 cities, and we're going to be starting those visits in April. So if you are a startup listening to this today, please get your application in as soon as possible. So for the next webinar in this series, I'm delighted to welcome Vicki Main to join us this morning. Welcome, Vicki.
Hi, thank you for having me, Dylan. Wonderful to be here, thank you.
So let me tell everybody about Vicki. Vicki's an award-winning lecturer, director of VLM coaching and training specialist, and a master trainer of the Eckhart College Entrepreneurial Mindset Profile, EMP, strengths-based tool, which we'll be discussing later. She supported over 2,500 entrepreneurs in Australia and coached several hundred people to achieve impactful results. With over 20 years spent in corporate educational training leadership roles in the UK and Australia, Vicki has depth and breadth of expertise in helping small business owners and organizations grow their businesses. She's created many inspirational learning and development programs and recently launched the VLM Escape Velocity Leadership Coaching Program, which again, I'm sure Vicki will tell us all about. So in addition, she's the host of the Viscosity podcast, helping people become unstuck to and achieving escape velocity and expanding their knowledge. And guests on the show share practical tips and real life experience for how they got out of negative situations or circumstances to live their best life on their terms. Welcome, Vicki, and it looks as if you're living your best life because I've got a Glasgow High Street behind me and you're in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I have to say I'm very blessed. I've built a business where I essentially work from anywhere with the use of technology. So I'm here with my partner Will in the Caribbean, and yeah, I'm currently in Petit Saint Vincent, which is a beautiful small island just north of Grenada, and yeah, it's been incredible experience here. So I'm working from the yacht this morning.
Excellent. So let's begin at the beginning. Tell us a bit more about yourself and your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, well, I think you've mentioned quite a bit there about what I've done in terms of my my career. I started off working in a corporate environment, and I was managing teams and leading teams, and then I guess I'm passionate about learning and education, and I ended up going into having an academic career. So I was teaching in the northeast of England for around 10 to 12 years, and then circumstances changed, and I then moved off to Australia, Western Australia, and I became a citizen there and lived there. I've lived there for the past 10 years, 9-10 years, and then circumstances changed again and then led me to moving back to London. So I'm now based in London, but I run my business from across the UK and also in Australia, but I have clients in America as well. So I'm building that, and I'm very blessed. I've had an amazing career. I mean, as a kid, I wanted to do three things: become a teacher, an entrepreneur, and a DJ. And I'm pleased to say, about 5 years ago, I achieved all three. So I love music; it's one of my passions, as well as education and learning and teaching. And I became a DJ as well. So I did that in Australia for 5 years, and I had my DJ name, and built a business up there as well. So by day I was teaching and training and coaching, and by night DJing. So a bit of both, best of both worlds.
So what have been the key factors in the success of your businesses to date, Vicki?
The key factors, I would say, is doing what I'm passionate about and what I love. I think for me, it was, I know where my strengths lie, and I'm very clear on my why and what I want to achieve in terms of my future. For me, it's all about giving back and about service to others. And I think everybody has a unique skill set. And I think my skill set is actually helping people to be able to be the best version of themselves and what they can do in terms of their business growth, particularly. So over the past 5 years, I've been doing a lot of training and coaching in that space. And as you mentioned earlier, I've helped several hundred entrepreneurs, particularly in Western Australia, scale their businesses. So they've had various pain points and things they want to achieve. So I've been there to help them behind the scenes do that.
And what do you think have been the biggest challenges when you've been working on your different businesses?
The biggest challenges, well, at first, I guess I would say I've had a portfolio career. And I remember about 6 years ago, I was working at a university in Perth, Edith County University, for those who might be listening in Australia. I think having at the time, I think I had 6 revenue streams coming in. I was teaching, I was I would say, had some side hustles going on. I was DJing, I was doing some consultancy work as well. So, and I also started to invest in cryptocurrency. So I was doing various things, and I found the challenge for me was I'm very much, I can do lots of things and jump from one thing to another. I think, multitasking, I can do that. But I think the key thing was going, right, okay, let's take a step back and go, what is realistic here? And the one thing I found was that I started to realize that a full-time day job was for me, it was one of the things that it wasn't for me anymore. So, but at the time I ended up being made redundant. I was actually working in a cybersecurity role and managing the cybersecurity strategy across Western Australia. So I ended up in that through various circumstances. And then, decided that working full time was restricting me, and I wanted to free myself to do other things and build businesses and help others build theirs. So I ended up, I was made redundant, which worked out really well for me, because I then set up a company which led to national success. I worked with a business partner and we scaled our business and helped many people in Australia and New Zealand. So that was pretty cool. But I had to, the pain point was stopping and going, right, okay, what is it I want to achieve? And going, right, let's focus on some key things. So that, and then I started to focus purely on my company and DJing, and then that's when things really started to take off for me.
It's good. I mean, everything you talk about is about helping others to grow, helping others to be successful, and you've done that with so many businesses nationwide. So where do you think this passion came from, Vicki? And why is what you do for businesses so important?
Great question. I think I've always been a passionate individual, and I know, looking back over my years, and I know we're going to talk about whether entrepreneurs are born or made, but as a child, I was always doing things like when I got behind a project, like for example, I became one of the youngest members of Greenpeace as a kid, and I wanted to really get behind that. So I would campaign and write to the government at the time. And if I got behind something that I was passionate about, it really would take off. So then, as I went through my career, I got passionate about building other people's companies and helping them succeed. And then, started doing my own thing. And I guess I was passionate about running as well, so started marathon training. And I think that's been one thing for me that was a massive learning curve in my life, because for those on the call who have done marathon training or been on that journey, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of similarities between running a marathon and building a business. And when there's been times and challenges in my life where there's been challenges, I've kind of thought back to that moment in time when I ran the marathon, thought, well, hang on, if I can do that, what can I achieve in my business? So it's always been there in me. I've always had drive and passion and ambition, but equally, I'm one of these individuals who can get easily bored. So I have to do things that I'm passionate about and stimulated by. So that's really important.
You come across as an exceptionally confident person. And I've always asked this question of everyone, because as entrepreneurs, we all go through this period of self-doubt. Sometime when you're thinking, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? Am I in the right direction? Tell us a bit whether you've achieved that. I'm trying to wonder whether you ever have, but and how you overcome it.
Absolutely. I think my confidence has grown as I've aged, I suppose, like a fine wine. Look, I'm not always, I guess for me, when I started teaching, I don't know if you recall, Dylan, the first time you went into a classroom for the first time, I remember putting my hand on the door and opening the door and thinking, I'll not swear on the call, but I was thinking, okay, let's do this. And I remember being really nervous. And I guess I had a bit of the imposter syndrome back then when I started teaching. So it was something that I had to learn my craft. And when I walked into the room, it was that moment where you go, right, okay. And then I started doing it and just, I guess, keep going, keep doing what I was doing. And I became more confident with it took me about 5 years, I would say, to really get clear and have that tacit knowledge in the classroom. And I think I would relate that now to being in business. So we talk about entrepreneurial mindset. When I had the company in Australia, so I've exited that now, and I've got my new company in the UK, and it's now in Australia as well. And I'm the sole director in it at this moment in time. And I guess, from a confidence point of view, I've worked with a lot of people and measured their entrepreneurial mindset, because I have used a tool that actually measures that. So I'm confident in actually talking about this as a whole, because I've been using this tool for like 5 years now, and I'm a master practitioner, one of the very few in the world. So I guess confidence for me has come from experience. And if there are people on the call right now who are feeling they've got self-doubt, or they're feeling fearful about something, I guess it's about going within and going, right, okay, where's this coming from? So I've done a lot of work on myself. I've worked a lot on, like, I wouldn't tell someone to do something or share something with someone if I hadn't done it myself. So I've spent a lot of time, especially in Australia, working on self-development, and I know who I am. I guess for me, authenticity is really important. So what you see is what you get. I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. This is me. This is me sitting on the yacht and do my thing. And yeah, I think when you truly are yourself and you're happy with who you are, and you're confident with who you are inside, I think that shows and translates out to the outer world. Having said that, there are times that, I can get scared and not be confident. Like the other day, I went and jumped in the ocean, and I was a little bit scared that there might be sharks there, but my partner kept telling me that there's no sharks necessarily in the Caribbean that are going to bite you. But so there are times I'm fearful, absolutely. But confidence, I think, comes from, you've just got to keep going, keep chipping away at it.
So let's talk about the entrepreneurial mindset and how we define it. And you sort of alluded to this about this age-old question whether entrepreneurs are born or made. So what do you believe? Do you think people are born with entrepreneurial abilities, or do they develop them?
Yeah, I think it depends on your environment as well, where you are. And I came from a fairly entrepreneurial family. My father was a builder, and he was always doing something. He always had some hustle on the go. And I think I've always been entrepreneurial, but I think I would say it's a bit of both. I think I remember being 21 and wanting to buy a Domino's pizza franchise back in the day, and my partner at the time said, we can't sell our house and put our whole sell our house or remortgage our house and buy a Domino's pizza franchise for 250 grand. And this was back in the 90s, and I wanted to do it. I was like, we've got, this is going to take off. And I didn't. And I look back and think, well, every cloud's got a silver lining, because I would have been very, very rich, but certainly probably my waistline would have expanded because I love pizza. But, I think about those things. And I think for me, when I moved to Australia, I then decided that I was going to unleash myself and go, right, okay, I'm going to go and create a business if I want to do that. So I ended up, when I went to Australia, that's when my entrepreneurial career took off myself. So I think it's a bit of both. You can be born with it. I also think you can hold yourself back from doing things. And if you surround yourself with people who are naysayers and who are people who won't necessarily support your entrepreneurial ambitions, it's not going to work. So I know for me, and I'm sure you can relate still in that, I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends now. In fact, most of my friends are entrepreneurs. My partner's a successful entrepreneur, and I just hang out with people who get me, and who, you hang out with your tribe, don't you? So if you're on the call and you're listening in, get yourself a network of entrepreneurs to hang out with, because that's the best way of, I would say, of supporting you through this journey.
Excellent. And you've talked about yourself with entrepreneurial mindset. Tell us a bit more about what the skills and characteristics are related directly to this entrepreneurial mindset, which you're currently involved in.
Yeah, sure. So I've been using a tool which is from Eton College in the US now for qualified to use this, and it's a tool based on research and academic research. So, and you might think, well, so what? But it's actually, I've used this tool several times with thousands of entrepreneurs now, and I can identify straight away when they complete this where their pain points are, and when they share with me their challenges that they're facing, I can see exactly from the data in front of me. But when it comes to the actual skills, it looks at future focus, it looks at self-confidence, it measures optimism, it measures risk appetite, it measures things like interpersonal sensitivity as well. So it looks at your appetite for if you take actions quickly and execution as well. So it measures 14 different skills and attributes that actually go towards the big picture of what an entrepreneurial mindset is.
Good. I just wanted to ask you about this because how do you think it can benefit entrepreneurs, this particular model?
Yeah, great question. I think it's about identifying. So when someone completes the assessment, so normally what I would do when I'm working with a client, they would complete the assessment and then we look at where there might be some opportunities for growth in there. And then, so for example, if someone has a really low future focus goal, I can identify pretty quickly that they might not have a strategic plan, shall we say, in place. So I'll talk to them about their planning. They might be very much in the firefighting here and now, but actually having, taking a couple of days out in their business to reflect on what they've done, where they are and what they need to do from here and putting in some kind of plan. It doesn't need to be a 20-page strategic plan document. It might just be on a one-pager. But then looking at, right, okay, you could benefit from having some strategic planning in place, and then you can go from there. Interestingly, when I've looked at people who have a low self-confidence score, they might be perceived to be really confident as individuals. But once I drill down on if their level of low confidence is coming out in the assessment, I can actually talk to them about, well, what's really going on here? And then we can work out where there's some challenges and how they can overcome those. So, for example, I worked with a client in Australia and she had a fairly low self-confidence score, which I was very surprised at. And then when we were chatting about it, we talked about her blockages that were stopping her from achieving what she wanted to achieve. Within 6 months working with her, she then went on to have global success. And it was because she worked on her self-confidence and worked on those things that were holding her back. And she managed to negotiate a deal. And she now has a business now running in 2 countries. And she managed to secure her future business partners through having those strategic conversations, but she worked on her confidence. And I believe that if you can't build and scale a business if you don't work on your mindset, that is going to block your success at some point in the future, for sure.
And how do you think entrepreneurs can leverage this entrepreneurial mindset to help their business?
Great question. I think if you are, for example, if you're working as a co-founder and you're working with someone who has similar skills to you or different skills, it's basically knowing yourselves and knowing how you can leverage those. So, for example, if you have someone who is really strategic and you have someone who's really good at execution, well, get the person who's looking at strategy doing what they do best. And then get the other person on the execution side, and then outsource whatever you don't want to do or you don't necessarily have the skills to do. So it's about knowing yourself and being able to leverage those as well. One of the things that the tool measures is structure and your propensity for structure. Now, I'm sure there's many people on the call, and one of the things that I found as a pain point as I was building businesses is I was very much big picture. I didn't necessarily need to do the detail. I could do detail, but I found that when I was in corporate and when I was in academia, I had a team around me to do the jobs that I didn't want to do. Now, when you start up and you're working for yourself, you've got to do all those things sometimes from the start. So I found that I had to look at getting some systems and processes in place. And I've found as my entrepreneurial gone up further down the line, is that I have to put structures in place, and discipline is something I've definitely had to learn, and stop looking at shiny things. I have to focus and discipline is the one thing that I've learned about being an entrepreneur. You can't scale a business if you don't have focus and discipline, in my opinion.
So obviously, one of the characteristics we in entrepreneurship research, we call this issue about locus control. So it's having a high internal locus control where you believe you control the environment rather than the environment controls you. So obviously that could change depending, we're about to go, well, we are in a recession in the UK already. Entrepreneurs might think very differently to what they thought, 3-4 years ago about the environment. So how can the entrepreneurial mindset help those entrepreneurs who may be on the call today and may be thinking, it's going to be really difficult to be positive going forward? How can it help them sort of deal with that?
Okay, first thing I would say, I love the fact that you talk about locus of control. And when you mentioned there, if an entrepreneur is saying out loud or how, things are going to be tough, guess what's going to happen? It's going to be tough. And I think if you, what you say and how you think is so important. So one of the things that I've been, because I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs who, they don't wake up in the morning and slap their way through life and go, life's brilliant. Of course, it's not like that. But I think if you believe genuinely that you can scale your business, recession or not, it's being able to go, actually, where are the opportunities here? Where are the opportunities for growth? So, for example, when COVID hit in Australia, and dare I mention the word, we had an online business pretty much, and we were ready. I mean, people were talking about Zoom, and everyone was, a lot of people going, oh, we're going to have to get online. We were already there. So we scaled our business post-COVID, during the pandemic. That's when our business really took off, because we were the early adopters. We'd already had these systems and processes in place. So I think my advice would be, if anybody's feeling that the recession is coming, I would go, well, where's the opportunities? Where's the opportunities to explore different business models? What else could you do? And where the opportunities? Yeah. So what you say is important, and I think being realistic, but also being able to go, right, where's the new opportunities coming here? What does the future look like?
And also, obviously, your business is leadership and entrepreneurial coaching. Many entrepreneurs might think they don't need coaching, that, they're entrepreneurs, they're successful. What would you say to people out? Do you think everybody needs some sort of support, needs somebody to talk to, needs somebody to bounce ideas off?
Yeah, I mean, not everybody, coaching's not for everybody, and that's fair enough. But I would say that, I mean, certainly as I've gone through my career and as I've gone on my journey, I've had business coaches, I've had life coaches. When I've been wanting to get to be my best physical self, I've gone to the gym, and I've had personal trainers to help me on that journey who are experts in their field. So I guess what I do is not dissimilar from a personal trainer in a gym. I'm there to help people with their entrepreneurial mindset and helping them in that space. And I guess that, yeah, it's important to find someone. I think having that network, as I mentioned earlier, is really important. But if you want to really get clear on a certain goal, or you want to smash through something that's been really challenging for you, surround yourself with people who can help you do that. We go and see an accountant for the very reason that we don't want to do our own taxes. You outsource that stuff. So, how can you're looking at surrounding yourself with that team who are going to make you be the best version you can be and free yourself up to do what you do well.
And of course, not all entrepreneurs are the same. So when we talk about an entrepreneurial mindset, it'll be different in different entrepreneurs, correct?
Absolutely. I've never seen two sets of data the same. So when I work with people, I mean, for example, I'll share a story with you. So when I was working in Australia, there was one lady who has a business over there, lovely lady, and there were certain things, without going into personal information, she had some pain points in certain areas. And I said, what does success look like for you? And because everybody has a different interpretation of what success looks like. And for her, she said, success will be walking into that car showroom, getting that car that I want, and being able to say, I've done it, and sitting behind the wheel and going, I've done it. I said, okay, your next coaching session, we're starting off in a showroom, in a car showroom. She said, what? I said, we're going on a test drive. Because I wanted her to feel, smell, be in that environment and go, this is what it looks like. So she knows that. So it was a bit random that I did that, but she got it. And within 6 months, she achieved it. And she sent me a text because she finished the coaching with me, sent me a text and said, guess what? I got the car. And I said, good on you. She did it. So, but that's just one person's interpretation of success. Success to someone else could be being able to travel the world and live wherever they want, but also be able to run their business online, which is what I'm doing. I love that. I love that flexibility of being able to go and travel where I want to travel and explore the world.
So how difficult is it? I'm not saying that every entrepreneur should now find their way into a car showroom and smell the leather, as they say, but how difficult is it for entrepreneurs, from your experience, to actually define their goals? Because most entrepreneurs I know are like this. They're so busy running the business on a day-to-day basis. To take that step back and to define their goals is quite difficult. Have you find that to be the case?
Sometimes I think when people come and see me, they're already on that process of identifying where they're at potentially. But I think you hit the nail on the head there, taking a step back. And that is so important. So how many of us on the call, or how many people on the call right now, work on their business, not in their business? So I make it a weekly thing. Every Monday I work on my business. I do that. In fact, I'm working more on my business these days than ever before, as opposed to in the business, because, you know, as you scale your business, you should be able to work, have people working in the business so you don't need to be there, that sort of thing. However, I think it's really important. Going back to the question again, is how being able to taking that step back. So for me, taking a step back was going out for a swim. You know, I swim quite a lot. I was training for triathlons, and when I swim or say do yoga or whatever it is, I can switch off and things can become clear. So if there's someone sitting at the desk today who's thinking, I just don't know what I'm going to do next, this is really tough, switch your laptop off and take yourself outside. Go for a walk and just put the tools down. Just put the tools down and go outside, get out in nature. And that, I think, and taking a step back is so important. Absolutely. I mean, it could just be they might need a holiday. They might be feeling a bit jaded and they need a holiday as well. And that's often the case.
I mean, there is this caricature of, you know, the entrepreneur that works 100 hours a week to get the business up and running. You really do need to take that time out, don't you?
Yeah, I believe, I mean, I don't necessarily believe in work-life balance. I think if you love what you do, it doesn't seem like work. That would be my view on this. But I do believe that you've got to look at what makes you happy and what's important. And, you know, I've got the T-shirt of working X amount of hours per week years ago, but then I also got the divorce with that. So, you know, it's what you focus on, where you focus your attention. So for me, as being an entrepreneur, if I work 20 hours a week, but those 20 hours a week are significant and they're going to help me build my business, then great, as opposed to working 45, 50, 60 hours a week or whatever that is. I don't believe, you know, people should be having to work X number of hours a week and that impacting their health and wellness and impacting their own mental health. I think it's really important not to. So you don't have to work all the hours in the world to be able to grow a successful business. What you need to do is work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Cliche, it is cliche. Yeah, but
it was interesting. I was talking to a coach the other day, and she said to me, "Look, let's take a grid and let's make 9 squares in this grid. And so, what's the first thing you do?" And I said, "Well, obviously, my work is very important." And then we went through everything else that's important to my life. And then she says, "Where do you spend the majority of your time?" And I went, "Oh my God, I hadn't thought about it that way. You know, my relationships, my sons, my hobbies, my past, all this." But it was this top corner work that was dominating. And it made me think, for the first time in many, you know, in a few years, have I got the work, like, it's not about the work-life balance, right? But if that dominates everything, then the rest of your life suffers. But at the same time, of course, you know, some entrepreneurs will say, you know, you work, you know, 100 hours a week for 2 to 3 years to enable you not to work at all for the rest of your life. So I suppose
I get that, but also I think there's another trail of thought that, you know, you outsource as much as possible and you focus on the strategic things that you need to do in your business and outsource the rest. So I have a team behind me for working and doing what I'm doing, who does all of the, you know, a lot of the admin and a lot of the marketing and things behind the scenes. I outsource those sort of tasks that don't need me to be there to do it. So I agree. Yeah. But it depends what you want to do. You know, it depends the industry you're involved in. And yeah, it's different people have different measures of success. Comes back down to.
So you've worked with different entrepreneurs. What have you learned? What's the big lessons you've learned about entrepreneurs and their mindsets?
Great question. I think, again, it comes down to even my learning as well, around you've got to be disciplined and focused, and working smarter is really important. I think working on the business as opposed to in the business is another thing. And I also think people who put time in their diary to focus on themselves. So for example, going out and going for a quick walk with the dog, or whatever it is that gives you that headspace that you need. I think those things are really important too. But also, I think having fun along the way. So those who know me will know that I work incredibly hard, but I also like to have fun. And, you know, I like to go and explore the world and do cool things and hang out with entrepreneurial friends and do stuff that, you know, is fun as well. So it's, for me, if I'm not enjoying something, and I'm not, you know, or other business owners who are, if they're not enjoying what they're doing, you've got to question why you're doing it.
And how do you get entrepreneurs to leverage this mindset for the success? How do you get them to sort of focus on it?
Yeah, so I use the tool that I work with. I use that to identify where their biggest opportunities are and their biggest strengths are, and then be able to use those and put an action plan in place. But it really comes from where they are in their business journey and where they're heading, and being able to apply those new learnings and look at how they can, where they want to go from here. So it might be that someone has a plan for 6 months to be able to get where they are, and they might need to manage their own expectations and go, well, actually, it's going to take a bit longer. It might take 12 months. So take the pressure off yourself and put it into a 12-month plan as opposed to a 6-month plan, and run yourself into the ground. You know, it's, yeah.
And would you say there's such a thing as a typical entrepreneur? How would you define, you know, a typical entrepreneur that you work with? Because you work with so many.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't say that entrepreneurs are, well, sometimes I would say entrepreneurs are a bit rebellious in terms of they won't, I love the fact that entrepreneurs won't follow the status quo as much. I think we are, you know, I look back to my entrepreneurial journey, and I was always the one that would be the outspoken one, maybe at work, and just go, well, why? And I'd question things, like have that curiosity and go, well, why are we doing that? Why do we need to do it that way? Could we not do it this way, where it makes it, you know, we can work? Is there not an easier way of doing this? And asking questions. So I think typical entrepreneurs ask a lot of questions. I don't think we settle for the status quo. I think we get easily, we'd be able to speak our minds and get to where we need to be and do the things we want to do. But also, I think having fun along the way. I've not met many entrepreneurs who are boring, to be honest. I think it's a fun thing to do, but there is also the other side of it where you've got to have your focus and discipline in place, and you know, you've got to know your financials, the business basics, the business 101 fundamentals. You've got to do all those things as well. So yeah, that's important.
So we've got a few questions from our panel, from our people participate today. So first one from Priya Shah, and she's saying that I've been an educator for decades and just recently became an entrepreneur. What are the things that I need to do to make sure I succeed as an entrepreneur?
Oh, hi, Priya. First thing I would say is I did go on that journey myself. I was an academic, and then went into being an entrepreneur. I think one of the things that I found was that surrounding yourself with the right people and outsourcing as much as possible, which you don't want to do, and focusing on things that you really are good at. And also, I think it's getting used to the fact that from an income stream point of view, you're not going to have the weekly or monthly salary what you might have had, but then you're working for yourself. So it's, you know, the buck stops with you. So, but I would say, you know, every day there's new opportunities that are coming up, and you've got to have that sales process in place as well, and be on the lookout for, you know, depend on the nature of what you're doing in your business. I think having a good sales strategy is really important as well, because as an entrepreneur, we're all salespeople. That's what we do, especially in the early days.
Of course. Next question from Claire, and she's asking you, Vicki, her question is, how much of your success would you attribute to self-belief or formal training or luck or entrepreneurial connections? Which one of those are important? All of them? None of them? Together?
Great question. Yeah, great question. Sometimes I remember, so my DJ business, I'll give you the example. So I basically went out and bought decks one weekend and decided that I was going to start playing DJing with friends and family. And then 3 weeks later, I ended up playing at an event for 150 people, and then randomly went on to get loads of gigs coming in. So you might say that was luck, but I was passionate about music, but it wasn't dissimilar from teaching because I was still entertaining. I was at the front of the room and mixing away. But I basically taught myself on YouTube how to DJ, and I thought, oh, I've got 4 weeks to get for my first gig, which was 150 people, and then it snowballed. So I went on to do a lot of business gigs in Perth, Western Australia, and I was playing for like rooms with over 1,000 people in it. And I remember one session, one gig I did, and I thought, how did this happen? Like, how did this happen? But I loved what I did, and people just, the vibe was great in the room. So maybe there was a bit of luck, but maybe it was connections. I have to say, I've leveraged LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's a really good tool to be able to share what you're doing. So, for example, I did a gig for one of my favorite gigs was for Bill Ty, famous entrepreneur in Rottnest Island in Western Australia. There's a thing called West Tech Fest, and I put a post on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm now a DJ." So one of my contacts in Western Australia saw this, who was at the local university, and then his PA rang and booked me for Bill Ty's gig. And that's how that happened. But it was through my post on LinkedIn saying, oh, as well as teaching and doing what I was doing, I'm now DJing. So I think building your connections, going back to what Claire was saying there, I think connections are important. But that's self-belief. If I didn't believe I could entertain a group room full of people and be a great DJ, I was never going to be able to stand up there and people take me seriously. You've got to believe in yourself, and know your strengths and go, right, you know what, I've got this. I've absolutely got this. So those on the call who are feeling a bit of self-doubt right now, you go out there and show people what you can do. You've got this. That's what I would say.
Excellent. Mark's got a question, which may be about self-belief on other parts, but he's basically said he's got a lot of ideas, but he gets stuck. Where he gets stuck is the marketing side. So he feels that getting his business out to the masses is a major issue for him. So what advice would you have for Mark?
Great question, Mark. I think there's a couple of things you can do. I'm sure there's in your local area, there's probably opportunities for you to learn some new skills, but also get yourself someone online. There's plenty of websites you can look at, and places you can get marketing experts to help you along the way. I think if you've got some connections who are based and to help you, they'll know some good people and can recommend some people. I mean, I have two amazing PAs, one based in the UK and one in Australia, and they do all the background stuff that I don't necessarily want to do, but they are there supporting behind the scenes. So, but like with marketing, I guess you've got to know your customer and be able to know who you're marketing to. And when he said he's got several ideas, well, okay, you might have several ideas, that's great, but maybe focus on the top three and go, right, okay, and maybe the others can come later down the track. So it's having that focus and being able to get people to help you who have those real great skills in marketing, because you don't necessarily need to do all the marketing. I know people might say in the early days, well, I can't afford to bring someone on board straight away. But there's also people who can help you on your networks, I'm sure.
Good. And related to that, Rory's got a question about the advice you'd have for a startup who needs to outsource tasks but cannot afford to employ or hire, a PA or VA. What sort of advice would you have for Rory in that instance?
Well, I mean, you can outsource and pay someone 5 hours a week to do stuff. You don't need to employ someone full time and have to go down that route. I mean, when we were scaling, so I had a business in Australia, and at one point I had 25 contractors working for me during COVID, and that was, so we worked a lot with contractors, so they were doing certain tasks and certain things but paying for their services. So there's that, you can do that. It really depends. I mean, if you're in the startup phase and as Rory says, he's still exploring, maybe the first thing I would say, Rory, is write a list of the things, the tasks that you do, in your working week, write down all the things that you actually do and go, right, well, on that list, what do I enjoy doing? What do I love? What do I want to do? And what can I outsource? And then look at a plan to be able to get you to outsource some of those things further down the line.
Question from somebody who won't tell me who they are, but but it is kind of interesting question. So what's the advice for a startup? Somebody's been a sole trader for 3 years. They've been a limited company for the last 6 months. they've scaled up, but they're actually having trouble securing funding. And they've tried finance brokers, tried high street banks, aren't getting anywhere. What sort of advice would you give to somebody who's actually looking for finance to get them over, to the next stage of their business development?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends. Without knowing their business model or knowing what they do in terms of their business, it's hard for me to give specific advice there. But I know when I was in Australia, there was a lot of people who were looking at grant funding and securing their business model based on grant funding, which I would say actually is not always the best way to look at that. But I would ask that person to go back to their business model and look at is there any opportunities in terms of what they're doing to raise the money in other ways? Is there something that they perhaps missing? There are angel investors out there. There's people out there willing to invest. But I know with my business, I took the opportunity. I didn't want to get investment from angel investors. I suppose I was lucky in some ways that I negotiated and had a large government contract when I worked in Australia. So that helped us on our way as we scaled. But I wouldn't necessarily look at raising finance through, as you've mentioned, the person mentioned how they've done it. That there may be other ways that they can look at that as well. But again, it's having those networks as well and going out there. I think what you guys do, Dylan, I think you've got a really good network of people. So surely within your network, there might be some opportunities there to help these people who are struggling to find finance as well, maybe. I'll put that back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody wants to get in touch with our networks, then please just get in touch with the Startup Awards team, and we'll see what we can do to help. Next question from Andrea Richards. Andrea's recently launched the personal color analysis business, which is a non-repeat niche business. So would you recommend concentrating on building a client base online? Because she's finding it a slow burn building an in-person consultation client base at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think with that, obviously it sounds quite interesting what you're doing, and as you can see, I've got my bright pink on this morning. I thought for this morning. It depends. It depends what success looks like for you, Andrea. Is it a lifestyle business you're building, or is this a business that you want to really scale and have people working for you? Is it UK based solely? Is it a global opportunity? I think for me, when I look at, when I wear color, I know that it makes me feel happier. It makes me feel good. I like wearing bright colors. And, if what you're saying is, you're a color specialist, but actually what you are is someone who helps, for example, women build confidence through what they're wearing and making them feel good, then maybe I would say that the online presence build on there as well. But surely in your local networks, there are people who can help you with local networking events that you can go to and help support you there. I'd be interested. Send me the details, Andrea. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be interested to know more about what you're doing. I love all that sort of stuff. Sorry, Dylan, the sound just dropped out.
Sorry, let me ask again. You think I'd be used to putting the mute off by now, okay, after 2-3 years. Tom Furness, Tom's recently taken on employees for the first time, and he says he's struggling slightly with the hierarchy of being in charge of people. So what sort of advice would you would you have any advice on what a good boss looks like and how to keep staff happy? There's a Nobel Prize for you. Answer.
Oh wow! How long have we got? Well, I guess what I would say is it's about knowing your team, knowing what makes them tick. So if you have someone, I recently worked with a team in Western Australia. I was over there doing some leadership training with a team of 25 people, and they were all very different characters. But one of the things that I did was look at their entrepreneurial mindsets. I measured them, and I could see exactly where the pain points potentially were going to be, and got them in the room and looked at and explored some opportunities there. But I would say, having been a manager and a leader myself in the past, is one of the key things. The key piece of advice I would ever give was around walk in their shoes. So when you have your staff, think about well, what makes them tick? What is it that really, what excites them? And being able to, I think sometimes when you're new into becoming a manager or leading a team, you might not necessarily want to delegate and empower people to do stuff because you think, oh, well, so I think that's really important. But I think getting to know the team, take them out for a coffee, sitting down, really getting to know your team and building high trust, because that's the thing. People don't leave organizations, they leave bad managers. And that's, that's what I would say. But getting to know the team, you know yourself. I think spending some time working out who they are, what makes them tick, what they want to, what excites them in the role, and helping them on that journey as well. That's what I would say.
Question from Georgie David. He says, why do you say grant funding is not the best way to raise funding for your business?
Based on my experience of working particularly in Western Australia, I saw some businesses who purely based their business model on grant funding, and unfortunately there were some situations that were unsuccessful to them. From what I've observed in the UK since I've been back here, and I've explored looking at grant funding, it's highly competitive, and the amount of time that you're spending on grant funding, I think it's an opportunity you could do that, but I would say don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you do that, then you're restricting yourself, and we talk about locus of control. The control is with you can go out and invest in grant people to write you funding bids and do all of that, which is great, but the locus of control is now out of your hands. So if you focus your business model purely based on grant funding, well, then it's out of your hands. So what can you do? So, I mean, I did this when I was in Australia. We did look at some grants, and there was one that was pretty significant, but it wasn't successful. However, when we went out and applied for, we pitched for business that was. So the locus of control was with us. But again, it depends on your business model. It depends on your what you do as a business, really, as well, I would say. So it's purely based on my experience from what I've seen and observed.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult because there aren't that many grants out there as they used to, say, 10 years ago. But yeah, from my experience, a little bit of money at the beginning for a startup can help.
Yeah.
But when you become overly dependent, it just means that you're chasing grants rather than customers, and then that's a very different thing. Okay, question from Emma McKenna. So Emma's had her own freelance writing business on and off for some time, but she knows she'd be able to do this full time to just strengthen her self-confidence and self-promotion. So she's asked the question, how do you approach selling, marketing yourself when first starting out, and how do you recommend standing out from the crowd?
Great question. I think so. You can look at various social media channels, and I think one of the decisions I made and what I've seen in several business owners is to focus on a platform that really you like. For example, I've seen a lot of success from people who have maybe focused on one like Instagram, for example. For me, Instagram is okay, but I tend to focus my attention on LinkedIn to be able to promote what I do. I think it really depends on, for yourself in terms of being a freelance writer, where are your clients coming from? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on another platform? What does that look like? So focus on, I wouldn't necessarily do them all like fully. I would maybe focus, particularly in startup, maybe focus your attention on LinkedIn. You can still use Facebook and Instagram and various, TikTok, people, I wouldn't necessarily put myself on TikTok and start doing, the miming thing. It's just not me. I'm not going to stand there and do a dance routine for the fun of it to try and sell my products and market my products and services. It's just not me. But having said that, it's not for other people that might do that. Maybe I should go into that.
Well, maybe you can combine, combine DJ.
Can you imagine?
So, final question, Vic. Thanks very much for your time. I know what I'd be doing if I was in the Caribbean. I wouldn't be doing a webinar. I'd be in the sun. So, thank you so much for your time today. So, the final question is: looking back on everything, what's the one thing you do differently if you could do it all over again?
Great question. I think for me, it's getting the systems and processes in place early on as quick as you can, because I found as I was scaling my previous company, not having those systems and processes in place early did slow us down a little bit. So we had to outsource a lot more with that. So I think that's something that I would say I wouldn't change a lot of things, but certainly having those systems and processes in place early would be a good one. And just do what you're passionate about, do what you love, and that the money comes after that. It's not necessarily, I mean, certainly not a driver for me. For me, that it's freedom and being able to control, having your own locus of control is definitely something that I would say is an appeal. And it's freedom versus comfort, isn't it? Having the comfort of a day job and having a salary every week, as opposed to the freedom to do what you want to do and live the life that most people necessarily won't or can't.
Absolutely. I should never have introduced the locus control term. You'll be using it everywhere now.
I love that now.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. Everybody on the call, I think Annabelle's put Vicki's LinkedIn details. So if you need some leadership coaching, want to know more about the entrepreneurial mindset, even though Vicki's in the Caribbean, I'm sure she'll respond in due time.
Yeah,
so again,
absolutely.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for everybody else for turning up, and we'll see you next week for our final webinar in the series. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dylan, and good luck to everyone who applies for these